of high school students, such as yourselves, talking about drugs and drug addiction in our son. We just never in a million years would even think of that. Corey was very smart. He was on the right track. He was a student athlete. You'll see in the video that we're going to show that he played baseball and football both in high school. And he knew what he wanted to do with his life. He wanted to go to college. He wanted to maybe play baseball in college. And who knows, maybe even one day, be fortunate enough to make it to the major leagues. And all of us in this room, I'm sure, have dreams and aspirations. I'm sure many of you are probably thinking about what you want to do with your life. Hopefully drugs are not any part of it. He knew what he wanted to do with his life. Maybe if baseball didn't really work out for him, he would be going to college and get a degree in the medical field, and have something to do with working in a hospital. He had all of his life plans set up for him. So how in the world did we end up where we are now? The answer is totally by accident. In the summer between his junior and senior year, he had a torn labrum in his right arm, his pitching arm, and he was going to require surgery. He had that surgery, and he took prescription pain medication pills for the surgery, for the pain, as prescribed to him by the doctors in the hospital. And he took those pills, and he had the surgery, and he recovered from the surgery. But unfortunately, the surgery itself was not successful. He would never throw a baseball or a football competitively ever again. So, as you can imagine, it was very devastating to him. It was upsetting to him, because that was really his number one hope and dream. But he was on plan B, and he was going to graduate from Town High School, which you will see in the video. He'll walk across the stage to get his diploma in June of 2006. And then in the fall, he started attending UMass Dartmouth College. When he was there, he had friends, but all of his friends, after classes, they were going to baseball practice, or they were going to football practice. He wasn't going. And, guys, life is about making choices and decisions. The average person makes over 200 decisions a day. You probably made already about 50. You're not even at noontime yet. And most of those decisions, guys, don't really matter that much. At lunch today, am I going to get the bacon cheeseburger, or am I getting chicken nuggets or pizza? Things like that don't matter that much. Other life choices can be life-changing. Am I going to seek out buying pills on campus, or am I not? Okay? That's going to have possible dire consequences attached to it. And, all right, when he was there at college, he kind of made some poor choices. He remembered that when he started taking those pills, they not only made the physical pain of the arm go away, it kind of made some of his emotional pain go away. And he made some poor choices. He started seeking out buying these pills on campus. 1 pill a day became 3, became 5, became 10. He became addicted. Remember, addiction, the compulsive need for something. Some people here might say, well, I'm addicted to using my phone. I'm addicted to playing video games. Okay? That's all I can think about. When you're addicted to something like that, or in this case, drugs, it consumes your whole life. Every waking moment, from the time you open your eyes in the morning until the time you close them at night, that's all you can think about. And it's also what we call a disease of relapse, which means it's not that easy to stop once you are addicted. And Corey was in and out of rehab over the next 5 years or so, 12 times. It was now the summer of 2013. He was 25 years old. He was a man. And his mother and I kind of got on the same page. And we decided to send him away to a place downtown for some long-term help. And he was there. And he went through the program, and after the program was finished, he started living down there on the Cape in what is called a sober house. A sober house is a house that, in this case, 12 men, including Corey, lived in. During the day, they go to work. And then at night, they come home, they have supper, they watch TV, they go to meetings to support each other to remain drug-free. And he was there for about a month and a half, and he was doing quite well. Until Monday night, July 15, 2013. We get a call about 10 o'clock at night from one of the people that lives there in the sober house with him. Basically telling his mother and I that Corey's relapsed again, and they're taking him in the ambulance to the hospital. And we need to come down there. Well, we relapsed 12 other times too. We didn't realize that it was as serious as it was. On the way down there, we get another phone call. The hospital wants to know, what religion are you? Because they need to call a priest and give him the last rites, because we don't think he's going to live the night. We get there, it was something almost like in a movie, although it wasn't a movie, it was real life, of course. His mother and I, standing there in the emergency room while a priest reads him the last rites, and basically tells us, I'm sorry, but your son most likely is not going to live the night. He overdosed, he took too much, he shocked his body, and it's too much. He was on life support. He had a tube down his throat that basically was breathing for him, and that was the only thing that was keeping him alive as he was unconscious. Well, a lot of praying went on that night. Call it God, whatever higher power you believe in. His life was spared that night. It could have easily been taken from him. God let him live, but left him with a permanent reminder of the awesome powers that drugs have by giving him some disabilities that he now has to live with for the rest of his life. As you watch in the video, you'll see him talking. He talks a little bit slow. When it first happened, 9, 10 days later, when he woke up from the coma, he was completely blind. He could not speak a word. Okay? But he did have his memory, and he was able to walk. A year later, you probably made the video you're about to see. He was a lot of speech therapy and physical therapy. He got better, and he can talk. And you're going to notice that when you read him in person after the video, he talks even better now than he did in the video. He's here today. He wants to share his story. He wants to talk to all of you, so that hopefully what happened to him will not happen to anybody in this room. Let's watch the video.
When you're addicted, you hurt the people that you love the most.
People don't realize that an addict is the kid next door.
It doesn't stop, it just keeps mushrooming, getting worse and worse, until it just spirals completely out of control.
My life sucks now.
So it was July 15th, 2013, and my cell phone rang. My name's Tom. I live with Corey in the sober house, and he said, I'm sorry to tell you that he relapsed.
And the neurologist came in there
and
pretty much kind of said, well, we think now he might live, but he has extensive brain damage, and that maybe his brain is only functioning at 20%.
Then they had to take him off the life support. And they weren't sure whether his brain was functioning enough that he would breathe on his own. So that was kind of scary within itself, not knowing whether once they turned that machine off, whether he would breathe on his own.
I remember when I woke up at the hospital and I had a tube down my throat and it hurt and I couldn't see anything except a white sheet.
He was always very athletic from day one. He loved baseballs and footballs and basketballs. He played Tauntonese Little League. He made Little League when he was 9, and he played 4 years in Little League, and he made the All-Stars all 4 years of Little League. He was a really good pitcher and shortstop, really good baseball player, very talented. He was the type of kid that any sport he played, he excelled at. He played on the freshman team at Taunton High, and then when he was a sophomore, he tried out for varsity, and he made the varsity team. He also played freshman football, and as a freshman, he also played varsity. He was the kicker on the varsity team. He was a quarterback on the freshman and JV team, and a kicker on the varsity team. Corey was an excellent student all through school. He was always on the honor roll from first grade through his senior year in high school. His sophomore year at Taunton High, he was inducted into the National Honor Society, which was a proud moment for me as a mom. He was always a really good student. He was always a really good kid, never had any behavior issues with him, never had detention, never had any problems at all with him. He was always really good, never gave me a hard time. His junior year going into senior year, he hurt his shoulder, and he had to have shoulder surgery on his right arm, which was devastating to him because it dashed all his dreams of moving forward and playing baseball in college or professionally. And that is kind of that's the underlying reason for where the addiction started.
I had to get surgery going into my senior year of high school. And then when I had the surgery, I realized that I liked the feeling of being on Percocets. So from there, it snowballed.
He went to UMass Dartmouth as a nursing major, and unfortunately he couldn't play any sport in college due to his shoulder injury. And that's where on campus he got a little anxious and depressed and upset of what had happened to him with his scholarships.
My dreams were to play baseball in college, and when that didn't happen, I felt depressed and anxious all the time. And I remembered that when I took the Percocets, how good they made me feel. So then I started to take Percocets every day in order to feel better.
He was going through a lot of emotional things, some depression, some anxiety, and my husband and I weren't really aware of that, only because he wasn't living at home.
I went from pills to heroin one day when I went to a friend's house, and he had heroin, and I tried it, and it was the best feeling I've ever felt.
We knew that he had a problem with prescription pills, with Percocet and Oxy, and we were trying to deal with that, but nothing prepared us for the moment that we found out he was using heroin. It was Christmas Eve, 2009. Dave pushed the door open and he was in there with a needle.
Doing heroin was me chasing that original high the whole time. Some people call it chasing the magic dragon.
If he was using every day and he was out at, his grandfather's house or out socially or working a job, nobody would ever know. Because it comes to a point with heroin where they don't use to get high, they use to get by. Because if they don't use, they're gonna get sick.
To buy the drugs, I would pawn stuff from the house. I even pawned all my mother's jewelry and my grandfather's wedding ring. I used heroin to maintain my daily life.
We tried to reason with him. We tried so many different addiction centers. We just tried everything and nothing worked. And then it just gets to a point where you have to realize this is way bigger than we are. And we just needed some professional help. There's so many resources out there for parents, but we weren't aware of any of them. And Dave and I would sit in our kitchen like, where do we turn? What do we do? I'd never dealt with addiction before in my life. I was ashamed or embarrassed to ask anybody about it. And I don't know, I just felt like it's not out there enough. There's not resources. There's a ton of them, but how do you find out where they are and what's available to you?
A lot of them, when you send them to a short-term thing, like 7 days, 10 days, whatever it is, they're not going to get it in 7 or 10 days. And I think insurance companies kind of need to maybe rethink that about how they deal with this issue.
He has balance issues. He does have a lot of falls. If he moves too quickly or he bends over, he will fall. So he can still walk around and maneuver around and do okay. But he can't see small print, he can't read, he can't use the computer, he can't use the cell phone. I have to help him in the morning when he gets dressed. He can't button or zip. I have to help him tie his shoes. He has problems holding utensils,
Brushing his teeth.
brushing his teeth, those kind of normal everyday tasks.
He can't, cut his food, or we even have special utensils that we bought.
Yeah, he's getting better with those.
He's getting better with those. But it is a difficult time for him just to feed himself. There are resources out there that you can use, and addiction is something that shouldn't be kept in the closet hidden. The more you talk about it and get it out there, the better it is in the end.
Every day I want to help somebody else who might be going through the same things that I am.
As bad as it was, I'm lucky because I didn't hear the words, "We're sorry, he's gone." He lived.
Talk to your family or your friends about it so that you can get the proper help.
Don't think that this could never happen to you, because it can happen to you. And if it does happen to you, don't be ashamed or embarrassed, and just hold your head up high and just get the help that you need for not only your child or whoever the addict is in your family, but for yourself. And there is help out there, and to please go and try to get it, and don't be ashamed or embarrassed.
You might think that doing drugs are going to make you cool, and all your friends might be asking you to do that and everything, and maybe you even try it once or twice, and nothing happens. And you might get away with it once, twice, 100 times. But in the end, something bad could certainly come of that. You should stay away from them to begin with, and, they can ruin your life.
Don't do any drugs because you can end up like me.
It's a very powerful video. If you pay attention to your science and health and wellness classes, you might know that if you go without breathing for 4 minutes, you're dead. They estimate that when he overdosed and he had a seizure, he went for about 2 to 2.5 minutes without breathing. That's 2 to 2.5 minutes without oxygen getting to all the cells of your body, but especially your brain cells. And probably millions of his brain cells died. And brain cells, unlike skin cells, they're not going to be able to repair themselves. So once they're gone forever. And that's what's left him with the permanent disabilities that he now has to live the rest of his life with. But he's here today and he wants to talk to all of you. Do you want to meet him? Yes. Let's go.
Hi, everybody.
It's on, right?
Now listen.
Hello?
Yeah.
Testing one. First off, I would like to apologize because the video is a little bit outdated. Because at the end of the video, Dave says that I have a problem feeding myself. But I'm sure that you guys can tell by looking at me that I don't have that problem.
I told the first group, and I'll tell you guys that, Corey's 6'1", and he was always about 185 pounds in college and high school. He was always very athletic, and he was thin, and he gained a lot of weight after this happened. And he's actually lost 50 pounds, so I'm pretty proud of him. He's been working hard to get back to where he was.
And then the second thing that is wrong in the video is I said that my life sucks now, except that it doesn't suck because of going out and speaking to groups like you guys, so thank you. When I first woke up at the hospital, I kept saying to my mother, I kept saying, why did I live? Why did I live? Because I'm going to be nothing but a burden to you guys for the rest of my life. And I felt I had no purpose, except it wasn't until the first time that I spoke to a group like you guys. Afterwards, I said to my mother, I said, this is why I live, this is why I live. So thank you. If there are two things that I would like you guys to leave here with today, it is in NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous. They always say that the three places that you can end up are jails, institutions, or death, except that I'm the exception to that rule, because you can also end up being disabled for the rest of your life like me. So please, if anybody ever offers you drugs, just please think of me. And then the other thing that I really would like you guys to leave here with today is don't tie your self-worth to just one thing, because I always just considered myself an athlete and didn't look at all the other positive things in my life. So when I had this injury and then I lost out on all the sports and stuff, I had no idea what to do with myself anymore or what to call myself. I had no group to identify with.
He just felt like once sports were out of his life, he had always considered himself an athlete from the time he was little, that he had a really hard time adjusting to where he was going to fit in now. And you know, don't let one thing define you. It's really important that we know as people that, you know, there's a lot of different things that we can do. And in Corey's case, he probably should have gone out and found maybe some other things or channeled his baseball knowledge in another way. Maybe helped coach kids, you know, teach other kids what he knows and be an asset to it that way, but also keep himself involved in what you really like. So I just think it's really important to, you know, not let one thing define you, because there's a lot of things about each and every one of you that is great. Not just the fact that you're an athlete or that, you know, you're a singer or, you know, you're in band or you go to dance. There's a lot of things that can define you. So just please remember that.
Who in here likes to use their cell phones? Come on, adults. Admit it. Who in here likes to go on Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram? Who in here has a license or can't wait to get their license? Because those are just some of the things that I can never do again because of my disabilities. So please, if you guys ever have the chance to use drugs, just please think about me first. Thank you.
You know, driving and his freedom, one of the most important things probably to somebody in their 20s, and I'm sure teenagers. And, you know, that's been a really hard adjustment for Corey, not being able to just get in a car and go where he wants and do what he wants to do.
And who in here would like to be living with their parents until the rest of their life?
Hey, it's fun living with us. We're cool parents.
Yes, you guys are.
So, but anyways, like, he has a loss of freedom, so, you know, maybe he can tell you a little bit about, some restrictions that he has, or like when he went out last night.
Last night, my friends came to pick me up, and they have to help me get out of the house. Then they have to help me get into the car and stuff, which is kind of embarrassing. And also when we go to eat, they also need to read the menu to me like I'm a little kid.
They also have to cut his food for him, help him eat. He has a special cup that has a cover because he spills drinks all over himself because of his motor skills are that poor. So, but that's what I call good friends. When they come and they take the time to do that and take care of him, so they're really great guys. But, you know, things like during football season, his friends like to go to a place and talk called Home Plate, and you know, there's a bar there that they go there, there's tons of TV screens, and they go there and they order pizza or appetizers, and they hang out there, and they watch the Patriots game. Corey can't go where there's liquor, even though he never had a problem with alcohol. Alcohol is considered a drug, so he needs to stay away from that also. So he was very restricted on what he could do. A lot of fun things that his friends can do, they can't do anymore. So his life is completely different than, you know, where he thought it was going to be, and that's all because of drug use. You know, drug use has taken away all those things from him. So it's really important that in your life, if the opportunity ever comes up that you can use drugs, try a pill, maybe you can think about Corey. I want to go back to when Corey was at Tottenham. When Corey was at Tottenham, he was a shortstop and he was a pitcher. And a pro scout from the professional baseball team, the Seattle Mariners, came to Taunton, and they were scouting him. So he really did have some potential. He did have the potential to possibly go somewhere. You know, unfortunately, when he had the shoulder injury, the pro scout went away. The college scholarships went away. Everything that he had dreamed for and had planned his life for had disappeared. They just kind of dropped him like a hot potato. He hadn't really had time dealing with that. So when he was off at campus, like Dave told you, he started buying pills on campus. He was, you know, anxious and depressed and was kind of upset about what had happened. He didn't know how to deal with it. And he should have gone and seen someone professionally and spoke to someone professionally and, you know, talked about what was bothering him, but he, you know, chose to keep it in. And he chose not to go and see a doctor and maybe get on the proper anxiety meds. Which, you know, maybe if he got on the right pills, it wouldn't have led him down the path to saying that, you know, I remember when I took Percocet, that they made me feel better emotionally. Corey, you want to say something?
Yes, and for those of you who are sitting there and saying, why do I need to listen to this? Because this will never happen to me. I have news for you, because I was the same exact way. I thought that I was way too cool and way too above all this to ever even use a drug. Except that I did start to use, and then you guys see where it has taken me.
So what I want to stress to you about, you know, he didn't take the right steps. You know, good people make, you know, bad choices, and rather than, you know, getting the help that he needed, he just figured that he could take care of the problem himself, and that's when he started buying Percocets on campus. You know, a drink or a pill or any form of a drug is not going to solve your problem. It's only a temporary fix. And that alcohol or that pill will become the biggest problem you will ever face in your life. So, you know, please think about that, and please just never take anything that's not prescribed to you. People think that addiction is something that happens when people are out partying and getting high and having a good time, and that's not always true. Sometimes you just fall into addiction, kind of like Corey did. You know, obviously people that become addicted to drugs, whether they became addicted through partying or whether it was by accident. Nobody wants to be there. Nobody wants to be in that spot. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to be an addict. That's what I want to be. I mean, it's just a difficult life. I met a mom who, her son was a senior in high school. He was his class president, and he was the class valedictorian. It was the end of his senior year. He was a little bit stressed about graduation and college and all that. Couldn't sleep. His dad had had surgery and had a bottle of Vicodin, which is a pain medication, in the cabinet that he never took. And he went into the medicine cabinet, saw the Vicodin, and thought, you know, sure, this is going to help him sleep. So he took one. It did help him sleep. He slept like a baby. He took the whole bottle, took 120 of them, so the next 120 nights, he took those pills. He was now, Vicodin is an opiate. He was now addicted to that opiate. There were no more pills, so he turned to heroin. 6 months later, his mom found him dead in his room. He had died of a heroin overdose. So this is real. This is happening to people that didn't intend. He was just looking for a way to help him sleep. So, you know, this happens. It's happening to 70-year-old men and women who are getting their knees or their hips replaced. So, you know, if you're prescribed a prescription from a doctor, I'm by no means not telling you not to take a prescription, to just ask those important questions. We didn't ask those questions. So before he had the surgery, we just figured, you know, a doctor prescribed it to him. He needs it, and I didn't realize that they were addicting, and I didn't realize, you know, where it was going to lead us today. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask if the drug is addicting. Ask if maybe you can only take it for a few days, and then maybe seek some kind of alternate pain management, you know, be it Motrin and maybe some ice or something like that. But please don't. The biggest killer of, you know, teenagers today is drug overdoses. More teenagers die from drug overdoses than auto accidents. It has surpassed auto accidents as the #1 killer now of teens. So please don't ever take a pill out of a medicine cabinet. Please don't ever take a pill that you don't know what it is, because, you know, it can end up being a tragedy at some point, because Corey's actually one of the lucky ones because he's still alive. We talked to the Massachusetts Brain Injury Association and asked what the stats were for people that are like Corey that are living with brain damage from an overdose, and they didn't even keep stats because the numbers were so low, because the majority of people died. People are either actively using drugs or in recovery, or they died, and numbers are really pretty low. But I think you're going to see those numbers climbing, and as a matter of fact, we just got a phone call from Channel 5 in Boston that come into our house this Friday to film us. I'm not sure if we're going to be on the news or Chronicle, but watch for us in the next couple of weeks on Channel 5, because you know, we're going to share Corey's story. When we go out, we speak to groups such as yourself. My goal is for you to all realize that this can happen to anyone. This disease doesn't discriminate, it doesn't know any boundaries, and it can happen to anyone. And just to share our story, hoping that at least we can make a difference in one life that's sitting in this room. We started our own nonprofit called Corey's Cause. We're on Facebook, so you can like us on Facebook, and Corey's spelled C-O-R-Y, there's no E in Corey. We also have a website, and on the website, for those of you that are seniors, we have a link for a scholarship. Anyone who's a senior can feel free to apply for the Corey's Cause scholarship. It's open to anyone, so please go on and print it out and send it off to us. There's also a resource page on the website where you can look for information if you know someone that's struggling. You know, please go and take a look at it. You know, if you know someone that's struggling, or you're struggling, or you just want to talk about this, because it is a very sensitive subject, please know that you know, there's plenty of adults in this building. There's guidance counselors, we have teachers, or just seek out a trustworthy adult who, you know, maybe can help you. Because 1 out of 4 teenagers who become addicted, 1 out of 4 teenagers who use will become addicted in the future. So that's a pretty high stat. So, you know, 4 of you, you all try some kind of drug, 1 of you is going to become addicted. And another stat for you, that the U.S. is 5% of the world population. yet we consume 80% of the opioid, the pain medication pills in this world. The rest of the world consumes 20%, we consume 80%. That is huge, considering we're only 5% of the population, which kind of shows you that we're kind of babies. We want instant gratification. We just want things done like that and fixed right away. So, you know, please just remember that, you know, you say, well, this won't happen to me. I know about drugs. I'll never use drugs. Corey was an honor student. He was a smart kid. He was a nursing major at college. He knew the dangers of drugs. Once he got that drug in his system, it was so powerful that it took over everything, and it changed every single thing about his life. So, you know, we're here today to share his journey, hoping that we can change a life in this room and hopefully make a difference.
Remember, guys, you only have one life. You only have one body. Don't abuse it by putting something into it that doesn't belong here. Sometimes, I don't know, we think that our lives are, our body is kind of like a cell phone. You have a phone, it's a couple of years old, I'm working like you used to work, screen's cracked. I want to go somewhere, I'm going to go to Verizon, I'm going to turn it in and get an upgrade. That works with phones, it doesn't work with the human body. You only have one body. If you do something to abuse your body, and your body becomes disabled, you can't go somewhere to get an upgrade and get a new body. I mean, I'm sure Corey wishes that he could get an upgrade right now. It's not going to be happening. So if the opportunity ever arises, you know, for drugs, and you need to think of Corey and just say no. You guys have a fantastic audience. Thank you very much. We still have about 5 minutes or so if we can open the floor right now for some questions that anybody has, if you'd like to ask us or anything you want.
Get a little prize if you ask a question.
Correct. Who has a question you'd like to ask? All right, over here.
How long did it take you to recover, Lori?
From the brain injury?
Yeah, when you were in the hospital. When you were in the hospital, how long did it take you to be able to be discharged from the hospital?
I was at the hospital for 40 days.
He was in the hospital for 40 days, and we've done 3.5 years of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. It's a long road to continue just outside of being in the hospital, but he was in the hospital for 40 days.
How about another question?
What was it like when you were on drugs? And how do you feel?
It was the worst and best feeling all in one, because actually I'd just say it was probably the worst feeling, because actually after a while you don't used to get high anymore, you just used to get by, because if you don't use the drug you'll get violently sick.
From withdrawals, he'll probably tell you drugs took everything from him, his girlfriend, his friends, everything, his appearance, everything he didn't care about, how he looked. It completely changed him. He flunked out of school. He had absolutely nothing in his life.
It really is a miserable existence. How about this young man back here?
How many times did you get checked into rehab?
Well,
He was in and out of
detox,
12 times.
except that the only extended rehab that I went to was one time.
Because he was under, I'm a school teacher myself, I teach middle school in Taunton, where we live. And most insurance companies, they only pay for 7 to 10 days of treatment. And 7 to 10 days is not nearly enough time to get somebody permanently off drugs. It is wrong. That's one of the things we're trying to rectify. And then after going through this 12 times in the course of about 5 years, we decided to bite the bullet here, and we were paying $7,000 a month to have him at this long-term facility treatment. We were paying ourselves, but it was worth it. It was You have to try it. Try to get it well.
Corey's spoken to the Attorney General Moore Healy. We discussed that insurance problem in length with her. And he's also met with Governor Baker. So we're trying to talk to any and everybody that will listen to try to help us get better treatment. Because like we always say, people say, well, it's a choice, he's that way because he chose to do drugs. And people don't understand that if you smoke cigarettes and you've smoked cigarettes for 20 years and you get lung cancer, the hospitals don't turn you away and say, well, that was your choice to smoke, so we're not going to treat you. They know your treatment, they pay for as long as it takes. With addiction, they pay 5, 7, sometimes 10 days, and then you're done. I think until that problem gets solved, if this disease, this is recognized as a disease that it is, it's going to take a while because people just aren't getting the proper treatment.
One or two more questions. Someone way in the back.
Go ahead.
This isn't a question, but I just have to say this, but.
Dee, wait a minute. Go ahead.
This isn't a question, but I just have to say this because this is so infuriating. Anyone who lives with addiction, nobody chooses to have, live such a disgusting and miserable life. How can anyone say that they would choose to live such a miserable life? It's a living hell. I know someone who's an addict, and they were living behind dumpsters surrounded by dead bodies. No one would choose to live such a miserable life. It's not living. You're practically dead. No one would choose to live that way. The fact that people are saying, oh no, they choose to live that way, it's disgusting. It's wrong.
No, because people don't, that's the whole part of the educating people, removing the stigma. People don't understand the disease. And we go out, we speak a lot about that, about people have in their mind what they think an addict is. They don't know. They don't know. We just have one quick question.
All right, one quick question. I guess you have to get on your way to lunch. For the t-shirt here, in the video, what was the exact date? It is almost a fatal overdose. It played the back.
July 13, 2000. No, July 15, 2013.
July 15, 2013 is right.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
I'm wearing the same thing you are. I'm wearing a long shirt. I have a short suit. Yeah, but you're wearing a JD. JD, not bad.
Thank you.